So looking up on the screen, you see my one bedroom unit plan and its elevations. And let's just zoom in on my kitchen here for a second. Fillers. Typically, you're going to have to incorporate some fillers into your plan because we're trying to dimension our walls from center to center typically on framing plans. But then when we get to our kitchen, the cabinets have to fit between the sheetrock, right, or the drywall. And oftentimes you end up with some odd dimension, like in this case I have 9'6" and 1/8. If it's on a 3-inch increment, you don't need any fillers, is that right? Because cabinets come on 3-inch increments, so if this was actually 9'6", I wouldn't have to worry about fillers at all. But it's 9'6" and 1/8, so I do need an 1/8" filler. Where's the best place to put a filler? Always next to a wall. Okay? So whenever you're designing a kitchen and you end up having put a filler in, your first impression should be, I want to put that filler next to a wall if at all possible. Sometimes there might be situations where you can't, and then you have to decide where would be the best place to put it, but in general the best place is to put it at the wall. On the bottom here I have actually 9'9" between sheetrock. And in that case that is on a 3-inch increment, but let's just say for example that this wall, I got to activate this view. Let's say that this wall came out to, let's change this to 3'10". Okay, so now it's 3'10", so now I have a gap between my refrigerator and my wall. Do I need a base filler? No, I only need a filler on this one up top cabinet, right? So the refrigerator is not necessarily going to fit tight between the sheetrock and the cabinet, but I probably don't want it fitting tight between the sheetrock and the cabinet anyway. So the only filler I need is on the upper cabinet above the refrigerator. Okay, so that's a good example there that in this case need a little filler in that little upper cabinet above the refrigerator, but I don't need to put one in my base filler, my base cabinet. And in some cases, some of you put a filler up here, but then you went and moved the refrigerator over and put a little base filler on that base cabinet. You don't need to do that. Okay, so it's not a spot where you'd have to put a base filler. So I'm just going to undo that. The other thing you can consider doing in that case is we could move that wall and make the and not have to have the filler at all. So in this case, I did say, well, I'm going to make that closet a 1/2 inch bigger, and then I don't have to put a filler in there at all. So sometimes when you're laying out the cabinets, if it's a minor move of wall, just you can move the wall. Okay, so that's some examples of that. Let's look at these cabinet elevations then. And as long as I'm in this view, I can just click on this view, and let's click on this one. Okay, when you first click on that, you get this line. What does that line represent? That's the point where you're looking from. So it's like you standing in the center of that circle looking this way at this wall, right? So you are going to see the probably the dishwasher. You're probably going to see the cabinet above the dishwasher because you're cutting through those. Okay, so let's click on that. And we look at our plan and our elevation, and I see this cabinet up here, and I really don't want to see that cabinet. You know, when you were manually drawing kitchen elevations, you were doing 2D work and you didn't draw that cabinet. But now because we're doing a cut through the building, instead of just drawing an elevation view, we're actually seeing something I don't want to see, which is that cabinet, and I need to hide that in the view. And then I'm seeing the upper cabinet over the sink, and I want to hide that in the view. And now I'm just seeing the side of this upper cabinet. Well, actually, there's one more cabinet in there I got to hide, right? Now I'm just seeing the side of that cabinet. And that's really what you want to see. So, and then at that point, we want to put an X through that, right? We want to say that that's the side of a cabinet, not part of the elevation of this wall. So I could go to annotate and draw a detail line through that. And I'm going to draw a thin line from here. So we really have to analyze what we're looking at and turn things off and turn things on that we want to see or don't want to see. Same thing down here at the bottom. I'm seeing more than I want to see. There's a cabinet here I really don't want to see, so I'm going to hide that in the view. Probably seeing another cabinet I want to hide in the view. And then I'm seeing the sink in section. In some cases on your drawings you probably cut through and we're seeing a cross section through the sink. Not important to this elevation, so again I want to hide that in the view. And now I'm down to just seeing the end of that cabinet, right? So again, then I would want to draw that section or a line through that. Indicating that that's the side of a cabinet. Okay. Other things that I saw in drawings were things like this. Okay, when I'm looking at that refrigerator, that with the handle over here, that means that refrigerator door is swinging over in front of the range, right? So you'd have to walk around that door to take something out of the refrigerator to set it on the stove. Probably not a handy way to do that, so just make sure you're putting in the right hand or left hand refrigerator that you need. So in this case I needed a left hand. That puts the handle on the right side of it. The other thing that was pretty common is as you're looking at this elevation, down here at the bottom I'm seeing the thickness of the floor. So my section is going through the floor and showing the thickness of the floor. So it's a little confusing at the bottom here. I'm seeing the entire concrete floor slab. So I don't want to see that. So I want to click on my crop window and hide part of that. So I don't see that at all. We don't want to see the thickness of the floor. It's not important to the elevation and it's kind of confusing to the elevation. Okay. The other thing is something like this. In our building, because it's a slab on grade building, the top of the foundation and the first floor were both at the same level. And in this case, the foundation elevation bubble here showed up on top of the first floor elevation bubble. And I don't want to relate my kitchen to the top of the foundation, so I need to hide this in the view. And right under it was the first floor elevation. So that's something that some of you have on your plans. You need to adjust that. Okay, so before you finalize a sheet like this, go back and look at every elevation, kind of analyze it, and determine for yourself what is right and what is wrong on it. Other things, make sure the cabinet swing doors are the hidden line type. Some of you did that on some of them, but not every elevation. You need to do that. Let's look at a different elevation. Let's go back to our unit plan. Let's look at this bathroom elevation. Again, if I click on that bathroom elevation, I can see where that line is. Is it showing me what I want to show? Do I need to move it someplace? In some cases, some of you had it maybe there and didn't realize it. What happens if it is there? I'm inside of the cabinet, so it's doing a section through the cabinet. And when you look at it, you probably say, well, that's not the way it's supposed to be, and you're not sure what went wrong. It's because of where that elevation line is. So I'm just going to undo that. Get it back to where it's supposed to be. Okay. The towel bar. Many of you missed putting a towel bar in your cabinet, in your bathroom elevations. I think we probably had to go to Revit City to find a towel bar, but you can bring that in. The important thing about the towel bar is placement. Where are you going to put it in the building or in that room? in my example, I put it over the toilet. It could have been on the adjacent wall. That's not the critical thing here, but it's placing it and then identifying where it is placed. So we probably need to put a dimension on it as to where the center of that is off of the floor. So we probably need to identify that. If it is centered over the toilet, I would say you wouldn't have to dimension where the location is. You're just showing it centered over the toilet. They will put it centered over the toilet, as the carpenters do. Okay. Many of you put in this mirror that was within the Revit program, which is an oval mirror, and that's fine. I don't have any issues with that mirror. But in this bathroom, does that mirror look appropriately sized? Looks too tall and thin for this type of bathroom. We can change that, right? We can go to edit the type. I could duplicate it. Before I duplicate it, there are other sizes in here. There's a 24 wide by 48 tall, and that's the one that defaulted to. But there are 3 other ones in there, or 2 other ones, I guess. But I'm just going to duplicate it because I don't want either one of them. And I'm going to say that I wanted it to be 30 inches by 36 inches, maybe, or maybe 42 inches. And then all I have to do is the width here is going to be 2'6", and the height is going to be 3'6". And now I have a mirror that probably looks a little more appropriate for the room, right? So do some customization to some of that stuff to make it work. It could even oval the other way. It could have been wider than it was tall. So you can do things like that. Another example on this drawing, on this elevation here, is you see this dark line at the bottom, dark line going up this side, but the top and this side are light lines. So what's causing that? Well, it's probably because if I was on thin lines, they wouldn't show up. So that tells me that it's the wall, that I'm seeing more of the wall here than I am up here maybe. So I'm going to put that back on thick lines. And I'm going to turn my crop window on. And there you can see that now I'm showing half of this wall, but I'm not showing half of the ceiling or half of this wall. So I can take my crop window, drag that over a little bit, drag this one up a little bit. And you probably want to fine-tune that as much as possible, but now if I turn my crop window off, now I have kind of a dark line around the whole thing. Maybe you want that, maybe you don't, but at least it's uniform around the entire sheet. Okay, so that's something you can do to improve them. Let's go back to the sheet. In your bathrooms, some of you, let's activate this view. I'm going to hide this in the view. Some of you had that. And it doesn't really show much, right? It shows you're looking at the door and you're seeing the tub and you're seeing the end of a wall here. But it's not showing much information, and if we're going to have a tub with a shower, we need a shower curtain or we need a shower door, right? So that's what I had hidden, was the shower door. Let's go turn that back on then. Okay, so now I got my shower door in there. Now I need to label that door. And in some cases, you see that my shower door has a rail across the top that that door would slide in. Some of you didn't have a rail on the top there, so it kind of like the door is not hooked to anything on the top, it's just kind of standing there. So you did need to probably click on this shower door, go edit the family, and look at this from okay, so there's my shower door now, and that is actually something that I had to add to it as an extrusion to create a rail for the top of that shower door. So a step that you probably just didn't think about, but we can modify these and create a rail for the top or bottom. Think about that when you're putting something in, and if it doesn't quite look right, maybe you have to add something to it. And in this case, it was simply adding that top rail to the shower door. I'm going to close that. And again here, you can see that this is wrong, so I would have to hide that in the view. Deactivate view. Okay, so those are a few things, and the light fixtures. Many of you didn't include a light fixture of any type within your views, and maybe you don't know what kind of light fixture you want to put up there. I'm going to activate this view. I'm going to hide this in the view. Okay, so maybe yours look like that. And we need to identify that there's going to be some kind of light fixture up here. We could simply go and put in an electrical symbol for it. In this case, I'll just draw one in here. Okay, so we could do simply like that and show that that's an electrical symbol that would indicate that there's a light fixture above this mirror. And then call it out, of course, as a light fixture location. One other thing that I think most of you did this right, but a couple of people probably didn't. Because you had additional space, you decided to make maybe a detail at a different scale. If they're elevations, they should all be the same. They're either all 1/2 inch or they're all 3/8. But you don't have the kitchen elevations at 3/8 because they're bigger. Then all of a sudden you have a bathroom elevation, so I have room, I'm just going to make it 1/2 inch. Don't do that. Make them all the same. Don't, just because you're trying to fill space doesn't mean you make it bigger. Or because you have more space on the sheet, you decided to make your floor plan view 3/16 instead of quarter or something. Don't do that. Or 3/8 instead of quarter. Standard sizes are unit plan or plans at quarter or eighth, and cabinet plans at 1/2 or 3/8. Don't fill space by making the detail too big. Got to stick with the standards for the program.